Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, Three Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. The Reticle Up podcast is produced in partnership with AmericanFirearms.org. American Firearms' mission is to recommend what works. We believe everyone deserves access to unbiased, helpful information about firearms, and our buying guides, product reviews, and learning resources are designed to help real people find the stuff that will work best for them. Check us out at www.americanfirearms.org. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reticle Up podcast. I've got Dave Hartman on. You probably know him and heard of him from the 3 Gun Show. So he's rebranded to Prep and Press podcast, which we'll talk about. He's been a competitive shooter, goodness, for years. He's even gone around the country in a trailer, pulling a trailer and traveling, which is cool. Those are some old times. But he's worked in the industry for years too. So this is going to be a really exciting podcast because we kind of do similar things. We've crossed paths before. So we're both learning today.
Yeah, I'm pumped. This should be fun.
I'm sure people have told you this, but like you're the perfect broadcaster voice like on planet Earth.
No one's ever told me that. I think it's the electronics. I sound like a dork in person. So
No. You have like the perfect voice. It's so good. I mean, it's funny because like, I'm kind of a fangirl too, because I've listened to 3 Gun Show my entire multi-gun life. And I'm like, here we are.
So. That's really cool to hear. And thank you so much. First off, it's great to be on someone else's podcast. I'm excited to do nothing here and let you do all the work. But hearing that someone listened to the 3 Gun Show and either inspired them to get into shooting sports or to progress in the shooting sports, or like in your case to create content, like really makes me feel good, because as you know, like a lot of times when you're podcasting, like you're talking into a hole and you don't get a lot of feedback. So once you finally hear some, you're like, oh, no way, people are listening. That's great. It's not just numbers on a screen.
No, it got me through a lot of plane rides. And seriously, my favorite, because I'm a shotgun nerd, was like the choke pattern conversation you had forever ago, talking about that, because they might be an easier gun to shoot, sort of, right? But there's something that people need to learn in the 3 gun world. Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, people always say easier, but I don't know. Like, there's so much to go with shotgun in the competitive shooting world that it's like a Pandora's box. Like it's the last thing like a lot of people think about, especially when you go to like a club match and you see like someone brought out like their duck gun or maybe like a Remington 870. You're like, oh my God, like, buddy, do you want to use my shotgun? It's going to be a long day.
Yep. Or me, who brings her stock Stoker with a plug in it and loads one-handed, one at a time. But you know what? I got multi-gun that way by doing it, and it was worth it. But I don't want to digress too much into that. But yes, I've been a long fan listener, so that's awesome.
Nice. All right. I'm going to make a note of the Stoker story for later.
Good, great. God, it's painful. I have footage.
Yeah. So when I started shooting 3 gun, was, let's see, that was 2011, and like I didn't have a smartphone, and I don't think I knew a whole lot of people that did. So like I had a flip camera, like where the screen popped out, and we filmed a bunch of stages on that and stuff. Yep. And so somewhere out there's video of me shooting my first match with a Mossberg 500 pump shotgun with like an 18-inch barrel and like a cylinder bore. Yes. And I don't know where that footage is or how to get it on the internet. So thank goodness that doesn't exist.
Well, it does. And for people that know you, I barely know you, but it's like you're going to go home after this and you're going to look for that video for probably next week.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
The research. But okay, so I'm curious about the rebrand. A lot of people, I work in marketing. A lot of people ask me about why should they rebrand, if they get pigeonholed or into like a niche with like, I guess 3 gun, right? That's a big thing. So what kind of made you rebrand, and what are the goals for Prep and Press?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons for that. And honestly, it took me probably 3 years to finally decide to do it, because Dave at 3 Gun Show is like, it's one word, it just comes out. It was something I associated with, and as you know, like when you build something, you tend to identify with it, and it becomes like part of your personality rather than just like a company or a YouTube channel or an Instagram account or something like that. So it took me a long time to do it, but the writing was on the wall like in the early days because when you and I look at those three words, like even if it's the number three gun show on a piece of paper, you see three gun show. It's a show about three gun, right? But when like the vast majority of people look at it, they see gun show, like the evil gun shows where killers buy their guns through gun show loopholes, right? And so I had trouble getting bank accounts, insurance, things like that. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was kind of yeah. So I actually had to like create an LLC that wasn't the three gun show, and so when I would talk to businesses that are out or people outside of the niche, like I would just always say like, yeah, it's media company, blah blah blah. So yeah, so that was part of it, and then also um, let's see, gosh, I don't remember the timeline, but somewhere along the lines, I like started shooting other things as well, right? So when I first started shooting, I did like USPSA, three gun, and like whatever else was out there. And then when I started the three gun show, I'm like, okay, I'm only going to shoot three gun. But then I had to turn down like a lot of guests and a lot of matches and a lot of opportunities because like it didn't really fit into that three gun niche.
Yep.
And I just decided I wanted to do more stuff. I like USPSA. I like things like NRL Hunter. I like shooting super long range. I like shooting, defensive guns. I like shooting dumb stuff, and I just wanted to do it all. And
Yep.
so I felt like changing the name really had a lot to do with that because no matter how much you and I like three gun, there are a lot of people out there who negatively associate three gun with whatever.
Or shooting. Two on
Yeah.
round. Yeah, no, it's and unfortunately, I'm sure and I want to talk about this in a little bit, but three gun's not as prevalent across the United States. It's very small in whether it's PCSL, kind of doing the multi-gun, or like Zoo City does a great stuff here. I know Ria Salado does a ton, but like there's just not the capacity to have three gun all over the country. So yeah, you're limited into a very small group of people that do change, but most of them stay the same for years. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to grow.
Is it like the balkanization? Is that the idea? Or
So.
I don't know, maybe I'm using the wrong term, but it's like, when the United States first started, it was a loose association of states or a united association of states, right? And we've kind of gone like federalist on this, but like three gun doesn't have a main sanctioning body.
Right.
A lot of podcasts on the three gun show have been talking about the the need for a overarching sort of rule set and like a sanctioning body type of thing, and there's a lot of resistance to that, and that's honestly one of the things I really like about three gun is like the outlaw nature of it, but it doesn't make for a unified sport. It doesn't make for a unified rule set. It's different everywhere you go. Like, oh, here you can use coupled magazines, and here that's considered a tripod for some reason.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things that go along with that. But then, if you don't like unite and organize, you'll never really become anything greater than the sum of its parts, right? Like NASCAR, for example, unified a bunch of outlaw racing. So yeah, it's a good and bad thing about three gun is like the people you meet typically have like a very libertarian or entrepreneurial mindset of like, I'll do it myself. And that's a great thing. You don't need permission to anyone to start up a match. But then on the other hand, it's like some people's ideas aren't that great.
And the shooters are the ones that suffer at the end of the day because it's been a whopper. There was one time where I forgot which one. I think it's the United Multi-Gun League where it's like you have to use at least 2 firearms per stage. And so someone just did like all pistol and they're like, cool, you've got a huge penalty. And they're like, wait, what? Because they don't read. It means too much to keep up with, honestly.
Yeah. And honestly, like it was really bad in the early days of when I started shooting. Like you had to read every rule set before you went. And a lot of match directors saw that as an issue and kind of like molded things together and tried to create a lot of commonality on their own. At least a lot of the match directors that got it.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of match directors that didn't. They wanted to stay independent, and some of those matches don't exist anymore.
Yeah, a lot don't actually. There's been a lot of changes. I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh yeah.
God, I can't even imagine how much like that's changed. So before we dive too far into the three gunning stuff, I did want to go back to the podcast stuff too and changing the name, because that's something we fight in terms of censorship. You kind of got
Mm-hmm.
in early on too with podcasting or even social media, where you didn't have censorship of the word gun or hashtags. You could actually search rifle and find all these rifle posts, right? So like, what has that evolution been for you on seeing all this happen? Because like, I never even got into it before all of the banning and the censorship.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I started, the reason I started a podcast is what exactly what you're talking about is like I own the media, I own or I pay someone to host it, and if that person decides I can't host my stuff there anymore, well, they never actually look at it or anything. And if they decide I can't host my stuff there anymore, there's 1,000 other places I can go. It goes through an RSS feed, like right to your phone. If Apple decides that they don't want me in the Apple Store, or now Spotify decides they don't want me in the Spotify, whatever it's called, then by the RSS feed, you can still share that with people. I can still share it with people. I maintain an email list for that reason as well, because I own the email list. And, there's, I guess I got fortunate early on listening to a lot of content about content creation. And it was a lot of people had, at the time that I got started, there was a lot of people that had businesses built on the back of Facebook, excuse me, and didn't decide to build a website.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook changed their organic reach. This is a long time ago, so many people may not be aware of this, but it used to be when you posted something on a business page, it would actually get to the people that followed you.
Yeah.
And they know, I know, odd, right? And they no longer do that. So that's the reason I chose podcasting. Excuse me. But then the other thing at the time was like, oh, they're going to ban videos on YouTube. And you may remember FPS Russia. Do you remember him?
Yep.
Yeah. So he was super popular. And that was YouTube's view of the gun world was what FPS Russia was doing, which is not necessarily the most responsible stuff. It was cool.
Yeah.
I laughed, but it wasn't very responsible. And anyhow, so that's the reason I didn't go into YouTube. But I guess I always knew like I needed like Instagram or Facebook following of sorts to like keep up with that. And then the other interesting thing, like we just talked about with podcasts, is that it's tough to get feedback. So I always was just like, hey, let's continue the conversation on Instagram, or let's continue on Facebook or whatever. And here we are, 10 years later, the RSS feed still exists. Change the name, and it's funny. Like if I would have started it. Well, I'm happy the way everything turned out, right? Because Three Gun Show is immediately recognizable as this is a show about three guns, like the Tonight Show. And at the time, there was like Three Gun Nation. Three Gun was on television when I started, or had just recently been removed from television. And so it was easily recognizable with that. Now, Prep and Press doesn't mean anything, didn't mean anything. I have momentum from the other stuff, but I also have those sweet shadow bans from Instagram and Facebook. And so it didn't really change anything as far as like the social media goes. It only changes things in the perception going forward.
Yeah.
And ironically, like now as far as social media platforms go, the most free one out there is Twitter, which was the most restrictive when I started.
Yep.
And the second one would be YouTube. And then the most restrictive would be Facebook, and second most restrictive would be Instagram. Snapchat and TikTok didn't exist.
Yep.
So it's funny how like the marketplace changes, and all those folks that I was worried about getting just completely wiped from the earth on YouTube now have like several million followers and big businesses based on that. So they did okay because they stuck with it.
Well, and then I know the insider stuff with them is that they actually, like, YouTube won't help you out getting started, but if you can get past their algorithms, then you get a YouTube rep who will literally go through your content, fight for you. They're a human being, they're not a robot. And because, like, I know the inside of like what these creators make for YouTube, they can't afford to not have them creating content. So they work with these guys that are gun people because they're like, oh, this makes us a ton of money. And so they can't. But you have to get to the level for them to care to get you an actual human being.
Yeah, they're the necessary evil, right? So
annoying.
Yeah, you they don't they don't like guns because they don't understand them, but then they love the revenue that they bring in and the audiences. So
Yep.
it's kind of
circle.
Yeah, it's tough. But like you said, like you gotta break through. And what's that number? What number do I got to get to have someone at YouTube care about me? Because right now, like they won't even respond to my tweets.
It changes all the time. At one point, it was like 1,000 subscribers. Now it's probably going to be like 100,000 subscribers before you get your little silver, and they're like, "Oh, you're making content." But yeah, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's just like 0.001% of Mr. Beast, so it's always moving.
Yes. Oh my God. The other thing that you did, I remember when you post your millionth download for Three Gun Show too. I remember that milestone. That was pretty big. And then the other thing that you did really right, I just haven't dove into, but like partnering with companies to do the giveaways, and then you've got your swag. Like, you built a whole entire brand around this. But what was that like? Trying to like establish relationship with the companies, doing the giveaways. Like, how did that kind of come about?
It was really hard, and I mean, it continues to be difficult. Like, I've been very fortunate that I have several people that took a chance and then have supported me a lot since, and they understand new media and they get it. This is going to be a surprise to you, but most of the firearms industry doesn't know what the hell they're doing with new media marketing, and
That's not a surprise at all.
Yeah, they're like, we have X amount of budget to spend. How much should we spend with John Scouten? And then how much with Michael Bain? And then the rest we'll throw into magazines. And I don't know about you, but I haven't bought a magazine in 10 years.
And I don't have cable, no offense, but like I've been on Shooting USA and I've never watched it. I've never seen me on Shooting USA. I've never watched Michael. I feel really bad. Sorry, John. I just saw him at like the PRS match I shot, and he interviewed me, and he's like, "Oh, we'll have this whole story about you shooting as an amateur with your pro," and interviewed him. And I'm like, "Cool, I'll never see it."
Yeah. Hey, buddy, put it on YouTube so someone will watch it, because nobody watches cable anymore.
He said he wouldn't do that. We talked about that. He's like, there's still people, I guess enough people. You know what? I don't know. Yeah. Well, the right things. And then I was at Gunsight, same thing. And like Michael Bain was recording, and I'm like, we've got a whole women's class of women ladies actually drawing from concealment, like trying out new gear and guns, and Ruger's right down the road. They sponsored it and had no media. Like, cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a total bummer. Michael Bain, like I used to watch John Scouten, the senior, and Michael Bain and stuff like that on TV, but that was like 20 years ago. And they make great content, and I'm sure they still do. It would be cool if there was like some sort of like crossover, or if I don't know, their organizations were amenable to like YouTube or even like Twitter now or something like that. But I don't know. Cable's like a black box. It's like Netflix. Like, you really never know how many people are watching or anything like that. You don't know the deals, or you don't know the deals that go behind the scenes and stuff to make that happen. And I don't know. It's not my expertise, so I won't speculate. But I've done plenty of that after hours. So
yeah. Well, I know you've worked with a lot. I mean, I always think about Vortex Optics. I feel like every single video or podcast I listen to, they're giving away something there for the channel, which was awesome.
Yeah. So okay, now I remember your original question. I got sidetracked on the old media.
I'm doing my job, right? This is my work.
No, I appreciate that. You're like, Dave, over here. Look it over here. Yeah. So the giveaways were great, right? Because it helped boost like the email list and the podcast in general. Like, podcasts are incredibly hard to grow because there's no like algorithm backing anything to put it in front of stuff. So for anyone listening who doesn't know exactly how it works, like it ordinarily, like take guns out of the situation. Like, ordinarily, if you make a post on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or whatever, they will show that post to a certain amount of your audience, whether it's 5 people or 500,000 people. And then that tests like how well that post does, and then they'll show it to other people, which is called organic reach. There's none of that for podcasts. So you put a podcast out there, if you don't tell anyone about it, no one ever finds it, and in the old days when I started you could stack your iTunes listing with keywords. Like, people would stuff keywords on websites way back in the day for SEO purposes. Mm-hmm. So when I started like, hey, this is a podcast about Three Gun Nation, USPSA, IDPA, blah, blah, blah. And then we've had such amazing people as Jerry Michalek and Greg Jordan, Keith Garcia. You put all those things in there and just hope like someone's going to be like, oh, that Keith Garcia won again, and type it into iTunes, Yep. So that worked. No longer works, which is kind of a bummer. So you need something to entice people to be a part of your show. So whether that's them sharing it, which if you have like a good relationship with your audience and they enjoy your content, they'll share it. But a lot of people don't know all these things that, hey man, like it'd be really cool if you told someone about this thing I'm doing over here, because that really helps me. Also the way I frame it is like, that guy that sucks at your club match, tell him about it. Cause like it may help him not suck so bad. And, share the one about resetting if he's not a resetter.
That's my fave.
Well, yeah. So the giveaways really help it in that sense, because it gets people to share your content, and then people that also see that there's a giveaway. If you have like a tool that not makes them, but compels them to sign up for the giveaway by either subscribing to your YouTube channel or Instagram or whatever you're trying to promote at the time, that really helps as well.
Yeah. Now diving into like that kind of world actually is the partnerships I want to talk about is match sponsorship. So, I mean, not just match events, trade shows. I mean, you name it. You and I have been probably in the back end more than a lot of people of reaching out to companies, getting sponsorships for whatever we're doing, or just know because we're friends with so many of these people that are sponsors of matches events. We know how little ROI they get, how little exposure they get, sometimes little thanks that they get. We've even seen the opposite too, where we've seen them kind of crushed on social media when they just sponsored or supported something. That's really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, but all of that stuff adds up positive or negatively, I guess, to the future of like whether or not they're going to support something, whether it's your event, somebody else's, or a person. Like, I mean, they've kind of been burned, right? So I kind of want you to go through like a shooter etiquette, maybe on like how to support these match sponsors at the event, after the event, if you can. What have you seen?
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot for sure. Like I co-put on a match, so I'm a co-match director for the Big Bend Blast and Dash in Colorado, which is a 5K run and gun I do with my buddy Mike. He does the like physical on the ground stuff, and I do a lot of the behind the scenes like social media and sponsor coordinating and stuff like that. So I've done it from that perspective.
Yep.
Reaching out to matches and asking for things. Obviously I've had thousands of conversations over the last 10 years. And then I also worked for a rifle company where people solicited me for match support. So I have several different perspectives on it that I've personally been a part of, and then as well as like a lot of good friends in the industry as well. So yeah, you're right. Like I think it goes back to what we were just talking about at YouTube, right? Like YouTube gun channels are a pain in the ass for Google, but they want them because they create revenue, right? So we as shooters are very fortunate for sponsors donating to matches, but they're fortunate that matches exist because they're not allowed to advertise on television, radio, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. So they don't have a lot of options as far as like where their stuff goes and where their advertising dollars go. So their options are like trade shows, matches, and stuff like that. So I feel like some of the best practices from like a match perspective is have a like a vendor area and offer that to your match sponsors. It's like, do you want to come here and do you want a demo? Maybe we can get you a demo bay. Maybe there's an extra bay that the range isn't using that we could use for a demo, or we could have just like a showcase table or something like that where you can have your products. I think Jeff Kirkwald Memorial Match does this really well. They always have vendor tables set up literally right behind the shoot off that happens on the second day. So when people are like standing there, all they got to do is turn 180 degrees and they're, staring at a cool new product from, places like American Defense Manufacturing, Vortex, Obsidian Arms, etc. So
awesome.
It is. And that's like a clever way to do it. And the lesson there is like, you got to give people a reason to go.
Yeah.
So Kalash Bash Texas does this really well. They
That's
have
more of an event too, though. They do a really good job of making that both an event and a match. Yeah.
Yeah. The first year that it happened, I was at the first match, and it was kind of a shock as far as like, what the hell are all these people doing here, and why aren't they shooting the match? And so it was kind of a surprise, and I think it was a surprise to a lot of the vendors as well.
Yeah.
Where they weren't expecting so many people to come through and shoot their machine guns and stuff. But yeah, those folks will stand in line for hours to shoot absolutely everything. So I think it comes down to like a culture thing, right? Like those people don't really care how they do at a match for the most part. So they're there for the experience, and part of that experience is going and picking up that Galil and ripping a mag off, So,
Yep.
so but Kalash Bash creates those opportunities for them to do so.
Right.
And it has them near like the food trucks, it has them near like the hangout tent or whatever event tent that they have. So it's all about hurting people and trying to get them to go to those tents. So yeah. So that's step one, I think, is give vendors an opportunity to be there and get them in front of the customers.
100%. I know like Tom Castro did a really good job with that at South Carolina Sectional, which was USPSA, but he had a huge vendor area. He did a little, actually he gave all of the guns prizes away to people that did stamp collection of visiting all the vendors.
Oh, that's cool.
That's where the food was too. Yeah. It's like, and then he built it into the match, and that's a little bit harder to do, but built it in where like one of your stages is stopping by the vendor area. So you have dedicated time to be there.
Oh yeah. That's a great idea.
But then it blows my mind though, in some of these ranges, they don't even have a sight-in bay, a zero bay. Like what if there's people that fly all over the country, and like if you don't even have a test fire bay, so it's not fair for vendors. I think, in my opinion, it's fair-ish, but it's like they come out and they have their guns on display. How do you know how it recoils? What's the trigger like? Like you got to be able to play with it. So it's really hard when these ranges are like, we can't dedicate a bay to live fire. I'm like, dude, how do you try this out?
Have you ever been to a new car show?
I can't say that I have. I'm not a car person.
So there's like car shows, tons of car shows, right? So
I'm a truck girl, Dave. Truck girl.
There you go. Overland Expo. Have you ever been to Overland Expo?
No, but that's on my list. That is on my list.
It's freaking awesome. So Overland Expo is like kind of the opposite of where I was going from that. New car show is like, it's basically just like in a convention center, and then you stare at the cars. Yeah. Like, oh, that's the new Mustang. Can I drive it? No, we can't start them up in here. Like, sweet. But Overland Expo is like the other side of that, right? So that's the Kalash Bash type of deal where, Ford had their Broncos out where you could go and drive them, and Toyota had their Tacomas where you could go and drive them, and they had like whoops set up where you could, I don't know, drive off camber, in a stock vehicle, which sounds frightening and that honestly looked frightening from the outside. But but then, they also have like the displays for vendors and stuff where they, sell their cool Max tracks and little tents and things like that. So
they're $5,000 tents that you sleep in times your whole life. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're driving on it if you're driving with the tent on your car anywhere in Colorado, you look cool at the local brewery. So
we've digressed, but yes, you need to have the experience of actually not just sitting and looking at something; it's actually getting to test it. I remember at SHOT Show, like at the range day, they had the Rambo bikes. They let me on the Rambo bikes, didn't sign a waiver, and I was like,
they must not know you, huh?
They don't know me at all. I'm like, are you sure you don't want to have something just like a handshake?
Aren't you accident prone?
No, 100%. They go like 50 miles per hour. Plus, it was like winding and raining, and it was on like the rocks of Vegas. I'm not used to Nevada.
Oh my god,
it's awesome.
Oh jeez.
I almost ran into a pole twice, and I was trying to video myself while doing it, and then I quit. So I gave up on content out of protecting my body. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's surprising how not surprising that is.
That was so good. But anyways, yes. So, okay, option one for that is to have an experience for the vendors to be able to actually, have hands-on with their products.
But there are definitely a lot of vendors that don't go to matches. So from like a match director perspective, it's important to set up that prize table beforehand so people can peruse it, because that is basically their view of who contributed to this match as a sponsor. The other thing, Texas Three Gun does this really well. I set a bunch of these signs with Garrison England one year. Is they put banners out, but they don't just like lump them all together in like this little banner wall that's off in the nowhere land. Like they have like, oh, this is going to be a shooting position. Let's put the Magpul banner right behind it. This is a shooting position. Let's put the Vortex banner right behind it. So when you get in the photos and videos from the match sponsor banners are always in it.
Yep.
So they do a really good job of that. Like that's like the basic of what you can do.
So this is kind of a little messed up. Maybe you'll enjoy this, but the best banner, and I say banner because it wasn't, that we ever did for Hunters HD Gold is we did a life-size cutout of Brian and put it on the actual angled like wall reach out. So there, he almost got shot, but he didn't. There was more videos and more tags of Brian not at the match because he was at my Gals Day than at the match. So the vendors that are there, I felt bad because they're getting less media exposure than Brian because of all these like first-person cameras or pictures. I'm crying laughing at this whole situation. I'm like, that was the best damn media exposure. We're gonna not send banners. We're sending life-size cutouts of Brian.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, have get one of them doing the Burt Reynolds on like a bearskin rug or something like that for low port.
He would let me do that, so let's not recommend.
I'll text him after this. I'll let him know. No, so you shouldn't feel bad about something like that. Like that is just, you should pat yourself on the back. Like that is just good marketing. Like that's guerrilla marketing.
That's Bill Duda and Brian and all their shenanigans of these ideas. They work, but then I don't know if that feels bad and taking away from other people though too. No.
Sucks to suck. You got to be better. It's a competition. Like we're all out here trying to get eyeballs, and so if you're getting more eyeballs than someone else, you shouldn't feel bad.
Then he wasn't even there.
Yeah, exactly. It worked.
It did.
I call that a win. Like. Do you work for Hunters HD Gold?
I do all their marketing.
Yeah. Okay. So you should put that on your yearly evaluation, like this. Epic. Yeah, epic cutout.
That's why if you listen to this podcast, Brian, we should do this for every match. It'd be a little bit more expensive, but I'm telling you, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like exposure, for sure. Yeah, you just got to think of crazy new ways to make cutouts of them.
Yep. Well, I did a llama patch this year that sold out in a couple days, and it sold other products too. And I was like, I'm going to do a whole farm animal collection. And he's like, seriously? I'm like, you let me do what I want to do, but it worked.
Tactical llama. Nice.
He was a cute one though. Oh my gosh. Sorry. I've digressed again on that. There's only 100 made. This is
It was a cute one.
I have no tactical in any of the names that I manage. Good Lord. But going back to the other thing too with the sponsorship, and that I wanted to mention is like, how sticky is it? Because I've done this in a good way, but like, how sticky is it for people that are already sponsored by certain companies to go and make a post saying thank you to the competitor, right? Like, so they're saying thank you for sponsoring the match. Do's, don'ts, goods, bads.
Yeah, so that's one of those. It's one of those life lessons, I think. Like I've got a friend whose girlfriend gets mad at him when he's nice to the waitress. And so he's now just doesn't even look at the waitress. So what does that have to do with anything with your relationship? You showing gratitude to someone for bringing you a cup of water or something like that. So I look at it that way. So of the people that I associate with as far as like sponsors go, none of them would ever say anything to me for showing gratitude to someone who's in the same game or industry as them, which is match sponsorship, for sponsoring a match.
Right.
And I just had a couple people on my show recently, and we talked about a similar topic. And Jeremy Gresham brought up, who's the vice president of marketing at IWI, sales marketing at IWI. He said, there's a difference between selling a product and showing gratitude. And you'll never, ever hear, this is me adding on at the end, you'll never, ever hear anything from anyone about showing gratitude. And if you do, it shows you what type of person and what type of company that is. And maybe you don't want to associate with them originally.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where the girlfriend getting mad at the waitress thing comes in.
I wanted to say if this was a mutual friend or not.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, that's good
Unless
though.
you went to high school with me, I don't think it's a mutual friend.
No, no, that's good advice. So I think a lot of us can do a little bit better, not just social media too, but like sending off an email is something
Mm-hmm.
simple. I write cards because I'm really weird and old school, but just like little things that just says, hey, I recognize the value, the time, the effort, and the money, everything you put into this that made it happen for us shooters. Thank you. Simple.
Yeah. One of the weird things that I wouldn't have thought of unless I had worked at a company was that an email that only one person sees goes farther than, like, say, a social post or something like that, right? And the reason is that a company does not exist on Instagram. A company exists in, like, a building, corporate environment, a shop, whatever. And so when you email someone, it's easily forwardable, and it's like a um, I guess it's like a culture thing of forwarding emails, right?
Yeah.
Like, FYI, look at this. Hey, you should know about this, meetings or a delay in material or whatever it is. So when you forward a piece of gratitude from a shooter or a match to, say, a superior or something like that, they see a lot of value in that because that's how they communicate in their day to day as a professional in the actual business of selling whatever it is.
Right.
So that, I think, that goes a long way, and it's not something I really thought about. Everybody loves to get good mail. Everybody hates junk mail or bills. So when you get, like, a thank you card at your job or something like that, automatically goes on the wall. Like, I walked into JP Rifles one year or one time years ago, and I was surprised to see how many cards were along the wall and awards and framed certificates and things like that from matches from, like, a long time ago, and those stick around forever. So while your Instagram post is gone in the algorithm and maybe 8 people saw it, depending on your following, your Facebook post may get into your aunt or your uncle's view or something like that. An email may go up the chain to, like, the marketing director or even the person setting the budget. Like, a card gets stuck on the wall and no one takes a card down. So, at least at a business anyway.
Yeah. No, I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing and well said. I gotta ask this because I want to know how many DMs did you get, whether it was like to you personally as you or like to the brand that you worked with, of just like people wanting free stuff, shooters saying sponsor me, like, and then looking at their profile and being like, you got 2 followers, bro, or like you've done no content, or I mean, like every single day of my life, I think is that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I got a lot of that. There's a lot of weird, like, pussyfooting around, It's like when you got a new bike and your buddy's like, "Oh, that's a cool bike. Do you want to ride it?" So, like, people are like, "You're working at a rifle company now. Oh, that's pretty cool." It's like, "Oh, yeah, it's great." And then it's kind of long, awkward pause. Like, "Are you going to do it? Ask it. You want to." But yeah, there's a lot of that. There's some weird things as well of like when I left that company, like, all of a sudden I didn't hear from people that I heard from all the time, and so yeah, there's a lot. People are friggin' weird no matter where you're at. But yeah, the sponsor me thing was kind of awkward, but it wasn't like awkward in a bad way. It's just like, God, be better at this. Like, you suck so bad. That's one thing I look at, and this may sound like sour grapes or whatever, but I look at, like, sponsored shooters, and I just think, like, what are you doing? Like, you are a professional salesperson or whatever. Like, if you put the effort into going out and selling more widgets of whatever it is your company makes, you could probably bonus better this quarter. But instead, you're, like, hustling a company for a 10% discount on powder. Like, what that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I never understood that. Like, one of the best people in I guess, like, branding and in getting eyeballs on content that has ever existed is Ken Block, right? It's like Ken Block and Harry Houdini, right? And Ken Block existed in the social media time, and he basically created a brand around just being a dork around a racetrack, right? And it's not like he did that so Ford would give him 10 grand off of a Focus. It's like there's a significant race program behind that. But in the firearms industry, like so many people are willing to work for a discount on a rifle or a free whatever it is, a free widget. Like it devalues everyone else who are actually trying to make a go at it.
Yep.
And it devalues the industry as a whole because it creates a lot of noise. And it creates a lot of noise. It's just silly.
Yep.
So
yep. There's very few of them that do it right, but the ones that have like a shooting resume, have a shooting schedule, so I know where they're going, that can give me kind of even seeing the social posts that they've already done. Like so many of these people be like, I plan on doing this or I want to do this with content, but hasn't actually done anything on their own. It's like, well, I need to see that for probably a good year before I'm even going to invest in something. If you're not going to do it now for yourself, why would you do it for anybody else?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. Like, years ago, I listened to Adam Carolla a lot when I was at a job where I worked with my hands, and he was like the only podcast out there. This is like 2005 or something like that. So like I've been listening to podcasts for a long time. And Carolla said that he got his job in radio because he showed up and did the shit jobs that nobody else wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like he drove the radio van to set up, and then he would do the events. He'd be there early, he'd be there late, and then one day they're like, "Hey, so and so is not coming in. Can you get on the radio?" Boom, there you go.
Yep.
So like you gotta if that's what you want to do, like you gotta show up and do that job for free before someone's willing to compensate you for it.
Yep, 100%. Is there anything else you want to encompass in that world before I change topics?
I think more people should like if you do want to be a sponsored shooter, more people should create content, and not on Instagram and not on Facebook. And the reason is, did you see that post that I did in 2017? I think it was like right around November. Did you see that one?
Well, you're gonna have to give me more context than that. That was right when I was getting into it.
Exactly, it's gone. Like everything on Instagram and
you're
Facebook.
doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
you're
everything.
Evil. Because you would actually not believe how many things I do stick in my brain.
You just see a look on your face, so you're like, should I know this one?
Maybe.
But my point is like I look at like stats on the podcast like monthly, and you can see people are still downloading the very first episode of the Three Gun Show that I did with Greg Jordan, right?
Yep.
And they're still downloading the Jerry Mitchell episode, and they're still downloading this, and they're still downloading that, and like it's remarkable. But those little like ones and twos that come in on those pieces of content every week create a lot of downloads, right? And the same thing on YouTube videos. There's a video that I did with or that I did on the IWI Masada. I think this was like 2018 maybe, or maybe it's even no, had to be, it was 2018. And like that continually it is one of the highest resources for subscribers to my YouTube channel, even over like the typical hour-long podcast that we do. So, but I don't get new people following me off of a braid a shotgun post I did in 2017. Like that stuff doesn't exist. So think like long term of where you want to be. And when most people think long term, like I'm going to be shooting for the rest of my life, and that's not realistic for most people. If you go back on the people that I interviewed in 2015 when I first started it, I bet you would find of the I think 60 episodes that I did that year, 50 episodes, 60 episodes, whatever I did the first year, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who still goes to matches. Like this is, for most people, it's a hobby.
Yep.
And what hobby do you go do where you're like, you know what? I would love to go do that hobby, but first I'm going to get sponsored. So my thing is like do something interesting and then get sponsored, rather than try to get sponsored and then think you're going to do something interesting because you have a cool t-shirt.
Amen.
Build a personal brand. Like the Ricky Bobby thing with the Puma on there and it says me, like create your own brand. And if you want a cool racing shirt, like go make yourself a cool racing shirt. Don't
what everybody else does.
Yeah, that's like the way to do it. That's what I did with the 3-gun show. Like I wore a 3-gun show jersey for a long time.
We can't tell people the truth.
What's that?
I said, shush, we can't tell people the truth that they can go make their own jersey, slap whatever logos on it, and just be like, a professional shooter.
Dude, there's okay, that's another thing. It's like, here's another thing. When you watch, again, the aforementioned Ken Block, there's Monster on the side of his car. Do you think that's because he drank a bunch of Monster? Or you think Monster gave him a shitload of money to be on his car? So just because you like, say Monster, just because you like Monster, like don't create yourself like a Monster shooting jersey. First of all, Monster is very litigious. That was probably a bad example. But like you look like a dork because everybody knows you're not sponsored by Monster. And most of us know the people in marketing at Monster, as an example. Mm-hmm. And we can ask that question like, hey, this guy over here that has your jersey on it, I've never seen him at a match before. How'd you guys get to sponsor him? Oh, we don't sponsor him. He just put our logo on his jersey.
Yep.
That's weird. Yep. That's really weird. Don't do that.
That's 90% of USPSA though.
Is it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Yep. Oh, we just love your brand. We just want to use the logo. We just want to put it on there. And like, dude, you need to get out there a little bit more and see some things because it's unbelievable.
Yeah, buy a t-shirt.
This is why I made a pickle jersey. I'm not taken seriously at all. Oh man. But good points all around. So I do want to switch gears, but I do like that little wrap in a bow. Do something first because that is really important. And then add your value first, I would say. I want to go back to 3-gun because like obviously we're 3-gunners, so I still want to talk about this. So I'm preparing actually to shoot TAC Ops again, which is disgusting because who wants to shoot exactly? This is Adam's fault. Adam Litke and them signed up forever ago. They needed a third teammate for the 3-man 3-gun. He works at Hollow Sun and we are shooting iron sights. And I'm like, bro, I have to take my offset red dot off. I have to take my red dot off my pistol. Like, how to find? No. You've gun. So Dave.
Do you shoot open then?
This is gonna be so painful. Well, and I just dove into open. I want to talk about modified carry optics and all the things because the future, guys, is red dots and open is the race division, and it's way more fun. I'm just gonna say that. Even as a woman, way more fun to handle a shotgun. But for you, what's like? We're talking about all of the gear, all of the organization. Dude, I don't think I have a way to keep it straight. Do you actually travel well with all of your gear?
No, I think you're talking to the wrong guy. So when I traveled around the country shooting matches, I had everything I owned with me. Right. Literally everything I owned. So, including my dog. And so if I needed something, it was either in the trailer or I didn't own it. So my recommendation is get yourself good friends. I've got Jay Christensen and James Gill are my two favorite people, and I guess Amax and Forrest Lathrop would be close second on both those because those guys carry everything. Find an over preparer and then latch yourself onto them if you're not exactly. If you're not into prepping for stuff and you're not the person that keeps every tool with you, find yourself an over preparer and then make friends with them fast. So that's my thought. But
have you shot one though without your van life? You've had to have shot. Yeah. So what do you do then? Like ammo cans? You have like a little gun cart, or do you do like the deck system?
It's terrible. They're like, Dave, you're on deck. I'm like, I don't know where my shotgun is. Like, give me a minute here. No, I actually bought a Voodoo bag years ago. It's like the Voodoo Tactical or something like that, 3-gun bag.
Yep.
And it weighs 70 pounds empty, which is wonderful because then when you load it up with everything you need, it's like 220 pounds on your back and you get to carry that around the match. But it was like half off at the NRA show, so I could not buy
Those
it
are
because it was a good deal.
Those are way too expensive, Dave.
Yeah, I wouldn't have bought it if it wasn't half off. But that said, like it was definitely designed by a 3-gunner, Mark Roth in this case, and it houses like everything I need as far as like mags and stuff like that go. I try not to put my ammo in it because, like I said, it does get to be like 200 pounds on your back when you do throw your ammo and stuff into it. But typically, so like I'm not the overly gear guy. Like I'm very fortunate in what I do that I get a lot of gear sent to me for evaluation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then when I'm done, like it goes on a shelf and like it becomes like the telltale heart. Like now I have something else I have to figure out, right? Like what am I going to do with that thing?
Like my Tupperware that you saw behind the scenes, containers of parts and holsters. Like, haha.
yeah, I got that stuff in the garage too. I've got so many plastic bins full of stuff, and it's all good stuff. It's just like there's just a lot of it.
You can't use it all at one time.
Yeah, for sure. Like especially as a three gunner, because there's a lot of stuff that we need. But I try to go with like as little as possible as what I need. So like if you're if you're a new three gunner or if you're like considering upgrading your gear, I always recommend the Safariland ELS stuff because a lot of people use it. In fact, most people use it, and then you can borrow things from people if you don't have it. Like just last club match, I showed up with 2 shotgun caddies, thinking like, oh, this match has never shot a ton of shotgun in the time that these match directors have been here. And I get there and there's like an all shotgun stage and it's like, shh.
Yep.
And I'm walking around like looking at everybody's belts like, hey man, you got a ELS. You what division are you shooting?
That's dangerous to look down, Dave.
Oh yeah. I got no shame anymore.
I couldn't do that.
No.
Can I see your belt?
Yeah. Just walk up to a dude like, hey, ELS, huh?
That's the thing. It'd be 50-50. I'm like, get away from me, or like, yeah, I want to.
Yeah, you might be surprised. I don't know.
I know.
But yeah, but if you do have ELS, like you can borrow stuff. Like for a long time, I had like 2 2011 magazine pouches, and so this is when I lived in Texas. So Jay like basically would hand me one at the beginning of a match, and he's like, "Just give that back when we're done." I'm like, "All right." Yeah. But yeah, same thing. Like with shotgun caddies and stuff like that. Like I try to go as minimal as possible. But if I'm going to like a big match, like if I were going to like for example, USPSA Multi-Gun Nationals is coming up in a month. Like I know that there's going to be a lot of shotgun at that because it's in Minnesota. So I'm going to bring as many caddies as I have, and I'm going to bring a chest rig as well.
Chest rig, yeah,
yeah. So, but I've flown for a couple matches, and so you're like, oh man, like what can I? Yeah. Have you ever flown for a match?
I've flown for not a 3-gun match. Those I can't do it. I've done the Minnesota, I did the Missouri, and I just did 2 trips back to back. But like, if I think about trying to put that in a suitcase or any of that, I would just want to slip my wrists. I would shit my ammo. Like I've flown with guns, check guns. That's not the hard part. It's the 3-gun gear part, guys. That like, especially when you've got like, if I think about when I travel and I have 2 per, like I bring it back up, it's like cool. 60 grand is in my vehicle, so if I fly with that. It's gone or it breaks. Hector with IWI, he just had his Galil like mashed to pieces by American Airlines, destroyed it.
Sweet.
For AK Masters flying that out there. And I was like, that solidifies that. So no.
Yeah. I have a friend that had a couple machine guns that went missing. And he's like, okay, well, I'll call the FBI. And all of a sudden they showed up. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. So I guess that's the panic button is we're calling the FBI. But so I've flown for several matches and I don't have a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
But I have a way of doing it, and it's pretty jank, I'll be honest. But I also fly with podcast gear as well. So now I have to trade off like, well, do I bring this? Like, are we going to need 3 mics or should I bring 4? And then like, sure, man, I might not be able to get my shotgun caddy in there. So yeah, there's that part of it as well. But like, if I'm going to like a club match or something, I bring like 2 30-round PMags, a 35 and a 40, and then it's not even worth bringing a D60 anymore to a club match.
Oh, fair.
Because they typically don't shoot a high round count, especially in the last like 4 years,
right?
Because ammo has been so expensive. But if I'm going to a major, obviously bring the D60. But that typically goes in either the suitcase or the big case or whatever. But yeah, I'm probably not the best example of people to follow. Like I'm the guy loading my mags the morning of and stuff like that. So
No, I had a picture in my head of Dylan Easley and his 500 MBX mags and all of them loaded, and like that's where I'm like, if only. But I am so type A. All of my magazines has this like blue painter's tape on the side, and they say burner or long range. So like I know that, or like even a coupled mag, one side's burner, one side's long range, all that stuff, which is really funny to me. So everything's preloaded, ready to go, depending on the stage too. So
yeah. So that's interesting because I don't load my rifle mags because of burner versus long range, and so I take that back. Like I have like one 30-round PMag loaded all the time, and it just kind of like rides on the back of my belt. It's my oh shit mag,
the back,
and
back up, yeah,
yep, the OSM, and so that one's always full. But like if you load a D60 full, and then you get to a stage, and you're like,
yeah, exactly, on top,
yeah, you're like, ah, man, I'm gonna use that D60 instead of the 40 round. And then like a lot of times, I typically shoot tack, so I'll choose a magazine based on the shooting position.
Right.
So you used to be like
tripod? Your coupled mag is your tripod.
yeah, exactly. My tripod. So typically, like I would shoot like off of a 30-round magazine, which is not really comfortable for a lot of people. Yeah. But now I have a higher scope mount. I went from 153 to 193, which you wouldn't think makes that much of a difference, but that drives me into a 35-round mag minimum to be on, and then if I'm shooting downhill, then it's going to be a 40-round mag. So I typically wait until I'm on a stage before I load rifle mags. Now pistol mags, a lot of times I'll load those night before, but I have like 10 or 11 2011 mags, and I've definitely been at a match on the first day with 0 loaded, just like stuffing them while the RO's talking. So I tend not to worry about much stuff. So
God, you're such a boy. That's fair.
Well, and it's probably not a good thing, right? It's probably like a bad character trait to not worry about things.
Don't change who you are.
That's where I was going. That's where I was going with that. It's like it's probably a bad character trait, but at this point, I'm not changing. So
no. Once I'm almost past 30, technically past the 30, but it's like I don't care. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Do you case gauge all your like shotgun ammo? Especially, I know it's like a big.
Hell no.
Really?
Hell no. No.
All my case gaugers up there. No.
Oh, that sounds terrible. That sounds terrible. No, I don't. But I don't shoot open either. Like maybe if I shot open, I would.
I don't know. Okay, type A. So I'll skip over that one.
Yeah. I don't have a cooler for my shotgun ammo. I do.
I don't do that yet.
Yeah. I do keep it out of the sun. That's about it.
Yeah.
And so I do have like major match shotgun ammo, and then I have like club match shotgun ammo, and then I have practice shotgun ammo.
Dude, those AA's are still hard to find, and they still are the match ammo. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I bought a bunch of like Remington STSs a while back from a buddy, and those are actually pretty good. So I've just been shooting those.
Cool. I want to get your take on this because I saw like we have the Carry Optics division in 3-gun, and like Zoo City just sent an email for Fall Brawl. They changed it to the modified division, which is what like IPSC and stuff to be more standard with them. So I know you've talked about it on your own podcast, but if you want to really quick kind of talk about like, I think the future is red dot optics, at least on the pistol, burn the iron sights. But how has that kind of changed our sport for the better too, to give people a little bit more opportunity to have fun?
That's a really good point, is that giving people the opportunity to have fun. So one thing that I really don't understand is like a lot of times going to open is looked at as a bummer or a punishment, and so people will say like, oh yeah, these new guys show up with red dots on their pistols and we have to put them in open, and that sucks for them. It's like, why does that suck for them? Like, were they going to win tack? Like were they going to win because they're new? Like there's no situation that happens. It's like, I don't know, but I always think that's interesting, is like bumping to open is a bad thing, but now you just put them in modified division. And this came about, so I think it was 2 years ago, Jeff Kirkwell Memorial. My buddy Forrest, who lives here in Cheyenne, and I went to the match, and on the ride home, we were talking about like, there should be a division where you can shoot dot on a pistol and not being open. And then we're like, okay, well, what would that division look like? And of course, like it's like 17 hours to Cheyenne from Minnesota, so we had plenty of time. And I think like all across Iowa, we had this this debate. And like I had like my notebook out, got a pen, and I'm writing stuff down, and I'm like arguing for iron sights and this, and he's like, no, we got to do red dots for that, and then it's the bipod and this and this and this, and so finally he got me because I was like, no, there shouldn't be red dots on pistol, and my whole thing was where this started from was TAC was too much like open, so like I feel like we shouldn't have D60s in TAC, right?
Yeah,
and yeah, so I feel like that's a pretty simple thing. It's like, okay, that snowballed into what else would you change? And then I proposed new division rules, like let's bring TAC into the modern era and put dots on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the marketplace was like, hey, what if we created a whole new division, and that became modified division? And turns out, like behind the scenes, there were people that were in the process of writing rules, and maybe unbeknownst to me, or maybe they told me and I forgot. But unbeknownst to me, we're writing rules for it to be a division in USPSA. So it was like kismet. It's like, this is what the universe wants, right? And so I put out an episode on the podcast, and it was just me because I didn't want to implicate anyone else. And holy shit, did I get a lot of feedback from people. Yep. They did not want dots in TAC. And like I said, the marketplace just basically said like, oh, let's create a whole new division. And then now it's like it's the second most popular division behind open at most matches. And, unless it's like a TAC specific match, like Duskin 3-gun, for example.
Right.
But yeah, it like seriously took off. So you can have like a 2011 style pistol or less, like you can bring your Glock 34 or whatever, with the red dot for pistol. The magazine length remains the same that we've always had of 140 millimeters.
Yep.
And shotgun, this is my big thing. I'm really excited about this one. Shotgun, just load that bad boy full, right? So there's a capacity limit. I think it's 13 plus 1.
Yeah.
But load the shotgun full. I've always thought it was dumb that we downloaded the shotgun, and that was like an antiquated rule that someone got around for the intent was to have full capacity, but the way the rule was written was kind of ambiguous. So they had a longer tube. So then after the clock, you can plus up, or after the buzzer, you can plus up. And that I always thought was stupid. It's like, we don't download anything else. Why are we downloading the shotgun? And holy shit, like just loading your shotgun full to mine's, I think 12 plus 1 completely changes the game. Like it makes it a whole new game. Your stage planning changes. And like on the surface, you think like, oh, it's only one quad load per stage, but there are times where you don't even need to reload your shotgun.
Yep.
And that's a significant thing for a lot of people who look at the shotgun as an obstacle to overcome rather than a tool to use. Right.
I gotta make fun of my friend Steve too. He did a shorter tube, and so he can only do like the +2 at the start. So I'm like, hey, let's shoot modified. I giggle and I was like, you can have your cute little girl gun, and I'll shoot the real gun. Because mine's a longer barrel, a longer tube. I can load 4 at the buzzer. He's like looking at me. I'm like, just saying, dude.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen a lot of people with like 11 round tubes,
that's him.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, that's not divisible by 4. Why are you doing that to yourself? It's like if you're loading quads, you're going to get 2 3/4 in there, and you're ditching a shotgun shell every time. That's so silly.
He's also a lefty, so honestly, he's just confused. Yeah,
he's broken. Yeah.
But
yeah, they didn't beat him hard enough to get that out of him, but that's okay.
But I love modified. So you're taking the shotgun full tube, which is awesome. Because the capacity is there. Might as well load it up. Like you said, if D60 is going full send, we're gonna have a D100 by the time it's over.
Well, and you can have a red dot on your shotgun now. I haven't seen like a lot of people do that, but that is something you can do. I think that's really interesting and exciting for slugs. That's really cool. I feel like that would be super useful, like Texas 3-gun, where they. Yeah, they like to put like medium-sized targets, like just far enough away to make it a pain in the ass. Like it's not cool when the target is smaller than my front sight. I don't like that.
I still whiffed it. So open shotgun, set up a tripod, and went to a slug.
You set up a tripod?
Oh, listen, if I'm in a game, okay, but this is my first time shooting open. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go full retard. I'm going to have 2 tripods. You know what? I brought my bag and like the mud plate thingy, and every single open shooter on my squad used my gear the whole match. And they had all been shooting open longer than I have. They used my cold tack, like big bag. We had a chair. It was really fun. Again, fun. But I still missed the slug shot with a red dot on a tripod. Tiny target though. I'm like, I can't help myself.
So I don't know a whole lot about open, but in my experience shooting slugs out of like tube guns, you can't brace on anything. You have to shoot
an open shotgun. Oh, you're saying that's the difference.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't know about open shotguns, but I know that they're like AK-ish, right? They have like a captured what's it called, handguard and op rod and stuff like that. So my question was, do you think that might have been something throwing you off there, or what?
Maybe.
I think it was.
I think it was also me because I hate slugs. So I'm a pretty good pistol shot now with the red dot, and I was even just shooting the Canic, and every stage that had the slug or rifle or 2 with pistol, I was shooting 2 with pistol and not missing like just 2 with pistol. People were like, Jesus. And I was like, dude, I hate slugs. They don't impact where you want to go. I can't get the good slugs anymore. So I'm like, I don't know where these go. And so pistol or rifle till I die, Dave. Minimal slug use. Minimal.
Yeah. Slugs are interesting because it's totally a novelty, right? Like there's way better tool for the job than a slug, as Patrick Kelly would say. It's like, I have a rifle here. Why would I be shooting 130 yards with a slug?
Yeah.
So I totally get that. And the argument is like, well, it's a thing in the shotgun world, and so we want to test all the skills of the shotgun. I get that, but yeah, slugs are difficult for sure.
Yeah.
But once you get them dialed in, it puts you so much farther ahead of everybody else, because there's not a lot of people that shoot slugs well. Aaron Hayes is one of these people that shoots slugs really well.
Oh, yeah.
And I watch him just like tink tink and then run. And whereas other people are like stuffing quads and stuff, like, oh, that's where he's getting all his time here. He's not throwing extra quads.
Yep. Smart man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So that's our little 3-gun adventure. I had to dive in there.
Yeah.
It's fun. I hope you have a good time at Multi-Gun Nationals. I'll let you know how TAC goes after this weekend, honestly.
I can't wait to hear.
I swear to God, I'm going to have a whole eye closed trying to hit these. I'm nervous about that part of it.
I got to say one more thing on modified division before we move on. So the USPSA rules, and then a lot of people have adopted it, say that you can have a bipod on your rifle in modified division. I think there's some stipulations there, but I'm obstinate and I don't like change. So even though I'm shooting modified division at some club matches, I was still shooting off of my magazines.
Yeah.
As like a monopod or bipod or something like that. And Forrest was like, dude, you can have a bipod. You own a bipod. Like, why are you not giving yourself the advantage? I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good point. So I tried it in the last match that we had, and holy crap. Yeah, that really does change things. It makes like prone shooting, it makes shooting spinners at distance so much easier.
Yep.
And I hadn't shot off of a bipod in a 3-gun match up until that point, because I had only ever shot TAC. So yeah, big ups on that one.
I'll post a video soon. I'm getting the footage from a friend, but again, shot open for the first time, absolutely fell in love. And I'm a terrible rifle shooter. I'll say that. I've gotten better, but when you introduce the stability and the bipod, there's a 600-yard target, and there were 7 other ones or 6 other ones. There's a lot of targets. I mean, 3-guns turned into a little bit of PRS. I'll just say that. So that's fine. But I was able to impact all these targets. I couldn't hit the 600, so I just shot like I think 2 or 3 rounds, moved on, came back, and like the video has me hit it finally at 600, and I just start like screaming like, yeah. For me, that's been shooting for a decade and can't shoot these targets. I can't do the monopod PMAG thing or the coupled. I don't know. I wanted to cry with excitement, because even though it took me a half hour to get there, I got there.
That's awesome.
It's so exciting to see that. And like, again,
there's no better feeling.
Yeah. So it's so fun. And then even when we shot AK Masters, people were making fun of me. I had the best time with like PCC, and my Galil was like 39 seconds, but it was like a minute for people to shoot these stages. And everybody's making fun of me. I ran my bipod, and you know what? I had 2 hits on the mover, no problem. Like, just bipod, guys, bipod.
You're shooting a bipod in an AK match?
You got in the bus and you had 4 targets you had to impact twice each, and one was a mover. I'd never shot a mover ever in my life. They weren't far, but again, off a little, like, you had to go prone or shoot off the back seat. I watched so many of my squad mates like give up, time out, or just try to get off the back of the seat. I went on the ground bipod with a PCC AK and the Galil AK, crushed it.
Huh.
That video's
awesome.
online too of the PCC. Like, I hit the one mover, I tried to hit it right before it like went away, came back, hit it, and I was like, I'm done. Was that hard?
Dude, movers are great.
No, they're not.
So much fun.
No, they're not, Dave. No.
Oh, dude,
no.
Well, it's great when you hit them. Years ago, I went to a sniper team match with AMAX, and we were there as vendors, and it was like law enforcement and military only. And somehow, even though we were there for just like displaying as vendors, they let us shoot the match. And it was kind of weird because like we're standing there in our little golf shirts, and like everybody else is like camoed up and stuff and wearing ghillie suits and stuff. And we went to this this unit where this guy taught us how to shoot movers, and we were shooting movers at like 400 yards. And he was like, okay, well the math is like, and I forget exactly what the math was, so I'm just going to make this up for anyone listening. Don't use these numbers, but he's like, so you want to lead them like a half a mil. He's like, unless you're from Alabama and you're a little slow, you lead them a mil. I laughed so hard because we were in Tennessee. I laughed so hard, and you could tell the guys from Alabama, and I'm like, giggle, and then I'm shooting later, and I'm behind it, and I didn't realize the instructor was right behind me. He's like, "You must be from Alabama." I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like, oh, I need to lead it some more, huh? But
oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's excellent. I try not to laugh too much. So I know we've dragged you on here, and I didn't want to leave this podcast without diving a little bit into working in the industry. If you want to dive into that, okay. You've been around a lot longer than I am, so I'm kind of intrigued by this. I wanted to know. Okay, you might not like this question. I can edit it out if you don't, but I am struggling with seeing the culture shifts in the industry of like they would go with, I would say, certain sponsored shooters that don't make sense, or they would go with like these gun bunnies, right? And then they would disappear. It was pretty cool where it was like, okay, they're working with serious like athletes or people that are doing really good content. And now I feel like the gun bunnies, I would say that's coming back up again too. How have you seen all those trends come and go? And like, are they just always here to stay, Dave?
Well, when I was in high school, my buddy's dad had a Miller Lite poster in the garage, and it had girls in bikinis on it.
Yep.
And that now we're at gun bunnies, and so I feel like the last industry that can do that, because I guess the culture is not necessary. The larger culture is not necessarily paying attention to that.
Yep.
The last industry that can do that, I feel like, is the firearms industry. However, when you go to the marketing departments of a lot of these companies, there's a lot of females.
Yeah.
And the reason is like there's a lot of females in marketing in general.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can, as a like marketing director or a VP or something like that, stare your 22-year-old social media manager in the eyes and be like, yeah, we're gonna get some some clickbait on our brand. And I think that was like a really easy, cheap thing to do for a long time. And while there are still companies that do support like the gun bunny type of thing, I feel like of the major brands and the brands that have longevity, that's kind of going away. Absolutely. And or it didn't start, or they do this weird mental gymnastics of telling themselves that's not a gun bunny, that is a serious shooter. Which, so there's a debate on all that. However, I see the massive influx of former military global war on terror bros. Massive. Like there's so many content creation companies, like we were talking about Ken Block earlier. Like he created a media company called Hoonigan. Like there are these conglomerate media companies that are like, oh yeah, we got these 5 guys, and they'll take your gear, whatever it is, and they'll go do something on the range that looks tactical, right?
Yep.
I feel like that's largely where the market is now, and I'm not sure how much the shooting sports sell outside of the shooting sports.
Right.
So if you want to be, if as a company, if you want to be known in the shooting sports, I feel like that's a good play is sponsoring shooters and matches and stuff like that.
Right.
But I'm super biased because I'm within the shooting sports arena.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that like is other than Jerry and Julie, and I don't even need to say their last names. Like how much of that really goes outside of the shooting sports? I think about that all the time, and I ask like my gun owner friends that have never been to a match and will never go to a match, and none of them have ever heard of anybody. So
I do find that often. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but but that said, like I feel like the crossover. So if I were in charge of a company now, like the crossover is where I would find, right? So a lot of times we as like firearms content creators, like we really preach to the choir, and I usually don't talk about politics on my podcast because I feel like I just be sitting there with some.
Yeah,
I feel like I'd be sitting there with someone who's agreeing with me, and there's like no interesting conversation that can come from that.
Right.
And I'm not converting anybody who's listening, right?
Right.
However, like BJ Baldwin is an example that sticks out in my head because you don't consider BJ Baldwin like a firearms guy. He's like an off-road racer. And while I don't particularly find his content interesting when he produces it, like he's a part of some bigger media things such as the hoonigan type stuff, and he's into firearms. So like that is a person that is friendly to it, that that comes from a different area. So it's like I was talking about earlier, like do something interesting and then get sponsored.
Right.
Like he's doing something interesting in that other space, right?
Yeah.
And but that said, like he's not dumb enough to take a discount code on a bottle of powder, you know?
And it waters it down for the rest of us. Yes.
Yeah. Like he wouldn't do that because, he has like actual legitimate sponsors that give him cash, Federal Reserve notes for doing the things that he does. So
right.
It's a completely different thing.
What would you say to someone that does want to like get into the industry other than like try to create stuff and then get into it? But what if they want to work in manufacturing, or what if they do want to work in those marketing departments? Like how does one find oneself in this industry?
Yeah. I think it's much easier than anyone thinks. Like I was a part of a like mid-sized company, that we did double-digit millions of dollars, and then it was part of an investment company that had like 5 other companies in the this suite of businesses that were all firearms related, and like 90% of the people you talk to have no idea what you're talking about when you're talking about firearms. Like I would have to explain problems with product to someone who was responsible for getting that product to me and had no clue why it was not good.
Yep.
Even when I used actual terms like rifling is effed up, like they don't know what that means. So I think on the outside, like people look at like the firearms industry like, oh, it'd be so amazing to work there. But it's like any place else. It's just a job. Like if you're a logistics guy, there's a company you can go to and run logistics that is a firearms company. If you're a marketing person, you could do the same. If you're a machinist, there's a ton of companies that would love to have you. If you're an accountant, like all those jobs exist at firearms companies. And the place that I worked, I was the subject matter expert. And I don't know about you, but like if there's like 5 guys in the room, like I don't want to be going to Dave for like, what should we do here? So it's interesting because in the areas that I participate in, I play in, there's so many people that are better at shooting than me. There's so many people that know the platforms better than me. There's so many people that have been downrange and use firearms for life-saving purposes. There's people that have, shot many more matches than me. there's so many people that have more experience than me. But then when I went to work for a company at like the industry, I knew more than anyone else there. And it was shocking. Like I was not prepared for that. And that was cool to be able to teach a lot of people, like, what does a gas system do? Like, what is the like, why does the length of gas matter? You know, and I taught a lot of salespeople on the products, and I would tear a rifle down. I'm like, this is what this does, this is what that does, and that sort of thing. That was cool because I really like teaching, but there's nowhere to go because there's nothing to learn. So it was kind of tough. So I think a lot of people make a bigger deal out of it than it is, because it is a company in an industry. So it's the same thing of like, well, how do I get into the bicycle making industry? Go to an event where there's bicycles. Go to an event where there's bicycle manufacturers, or I don't know, go on Indeed and look up bicycle manufacturing companies near me, and what are the top 10 bicycle manufacturers that you think are the coolest bikes out there? Like, write those down, go to each of their websites, and click on careers. Go to the LinkedIn, find the HR manager, send them a message, be like, hey, you know, I really like your bikes, and I'm also really good at whatever it is you do. Insert here. Are you an accountant? Are you a managerial person? Like if you're you know, from the military, you have leadership experience, so you'd be a great manager, even if you don't know a whole lot about bikes. And I think a lot of people, myself included, try to make it harder than it is because we have such a passion for the firearms industry as a whole, and we're enthusiasts in shooting and marksmanship, and we love all the gear, and we create content around it and stuff like that. And it's much easier than you think. It's just like getting hired at any other company.
Yep. I wanted people to hear it from you because I feel like that's it's not that
you
hard.
You agree? Or do you disagree?
No, I agree. And the other stuff is like they're in the new age, I would say, and where we're living is there's jobs that aren't even like job descriptions, right? Like you can get paid to do things, but you got to create like the opportunity, you got to create the job. But like what you already said too with going to the events is like most of the clients that I have now or that I've met along the way, it just took me investing in myself. So me showing up to events, me showing up to trade shows, just talking to people, and like years later it comes, right? But just making those connections and talking to people, it's really magical what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, don't be a douche. And if you are, fix that. Those are 1 and 2. And then second, go talk to people. I think I get this question a lot, and I understand it's like, you know, I have podcasts, and like I love getting questions, and I love answering questions on the show and stuff like that. So don't take this as like don't ask the question, but I think people, if I could infer, I think some people see like that I started a podcast, excuse me, and then you know, I worked with a bunch of different companies on a business to business relationship, and then I went to work for a company, and they think like that's the path. That's not the path. The reason I did that is exactly what I was talking about earlier, is do something before you ask for something. So I worked when I started the podcast, I worked at Lockheed Martin, and I had worked there for well, when I started, it was like 7 years, but I worked there for 8 years, and I did something completely outside of my degreed area. I have a degree in marketing, and I hadn't been doing marketing for 8 years. Like I said earlier, like at the you know, before I started the show, I didn't even have a smartphone, and I ended up getting one. I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna have to be on Instagram and Facebook, so I better get a smartphone. Like so. I hadn't done Instagram marketing. I hadn't done email marketing. I hadn't done Facebook marketing. I hadn't created a YouTube video. I didn't know how to video or edit video. I didn't know how to edit a podcast. So I couldn't necessarily go to any company, let alone a firearms company, and say, hi, I found myself in a career that I did not feel fulfilled in, and I would like to be in your marketing company. But I'm also, you know, mid-career here, so I want you to pay me mid-career prices, even though you're going to be getting like early career value from me, because I haven't been doing marketing for a long time, you know, for 8 years now. So my thing was, I need to go and do these marketing skills and learn these marketing skills, and I didn't want to get paid 28 grand a year to do it. So I did it for free, which was an even better idea.
Yep.
And so the the idea is like you can go and switch your lifestyle, or you can do it on the side for yourself for free. So basically, like we talked about, like I didn't have cable, I didn't have a television, so I created podcasts and edited them, and that's what I did after work and before work and stuff like that. That's what I did in my free time. So that's the reason. That's the long way of saying, like, yeah, I had a very specific purpose in mind when I started the podcast, and it was to gain experience in marketing, and that's what I did. Because I found myself 8 years into being a manufacturing engineer at Lockheed Martin, thinking like, I'm not really into manufacturing engineering. I like manufacturing stuff. I love watching stuff being made. But in my spare time, all I do is listen to business podcasts and marketing podcasts, and I really should be doing that. So that's a very long answer, but that's the path that's the reason I went on the path that I did.
Love it. It's an inspiring story, and it is where hard work pays off, and you can build something, create something, and then get to where you want to go. And then it pays way more than making the 28K would be now. It's probably like 40.
Yeah. We don't want to talk about that.
No,
Inflation.
It's true. Cool. Well, I know we talked about a lot. Thank you so much for all of the fun, the wisdom, and all of that. Is there any other, final thoughts or something stuck in your head that you want to get out before we're done here?
No, I think the overall theme here has been like, do something interesting. And I always feel like that's a great way to live your life, because it's ending 1 minute at a time. And so if you don't do something interesting, you're wasting it. So go out, enjoy it.
Love it. And then Dave, for listeners, how can people find you on social media, on your website? Where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, the YouTube channel is Prep and Press, and prepandpress.com, and you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, and all that other good stuff. So just look for Prep and Press, and we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, listeners, thanks for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for more. And if you want to hear the other side of the interview, go to Dave Hartman's, watch his press and prep. I'm laughing because it's about to be a Stoker story. Anyways, Prep and Press podcast to hear my interview. So wish me luck there.
Yeah, thanks, Kenzie.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Reticle Up podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.